There is a phrase in 1 Kings 11 that English translations tend to soften. The Hebrew reads Lev Shalem, a whole heart, an undivided heart. The verse says Solomon's heart was not Lev Shalem with the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. Most readers slide past this line on the way to the more dramatic accusations that follow. But the entire tragedy of Solomon's reign sits inside those two words. A whole heart, not a sinless heart, not a perfect heart. A heart that is one piece. A heart that has not been quietly subdivided into rooms, each kept for a different God, a different ambition, a different version of the self. David's heart was not clean. David's heart broke commandments. David's heart killed a man to take his wife. And yet the text insists David's heart was Lev Shalem. Why? Because David, when confronted, returned. The heart bent back, the fragments pulled together again. Solomon's tragedy is not that he sinned more than his father. It is that his heart, somewhere along the way, stopped returning. This is where I want to begin. Not at the famous dream, not at the temple, not at the gold. I want to begin at a single Hebrew word and ask what kind of king ends his life with a heart in pieces, and how a man given more clarity than anyone in his generation became a man who could no longer tell which room of his own soul he was sitting in. The story of Solomon is usually told as a rise and a fall, wisdom at the start, folly at the end, a clean arc. But the Hebrew text does not read that way. The Hebrew text reads like a slow blur, a drift so gradual that you cannot point to the day it began. Solomon does not wake up one morning and decide to build an altar to Chemosh. The altar is the visible end of an invisible erosion that started years earlier, in compromises so small they did not feel like compromises at all. That is what makes this story uncomfortable. It is not the story of a man who turned bad. It is the story of a man who turned distracted, who stopped noticing, who let his heart be furnished by every alliance, every treaty, every pleasure, every clever arrangement, until there was no room left for the one God his father had loved with all of his. Some scholars have noticed something strange about how 1 Kings is structured. The Deuteronomistic historian, the editor or school of editors who shaped the books of Kings into their final form, does something subtle with Solomon. The praise comes early. The warnings come buried inside the praise. By the time you reach chapter 11, you realize the editor has been quietly placing concerning details for several chapters already. The horses from Egypt, the forced labor, the foreign wives. They are mentioned almost in passing, as if the text itself is showing you how easy it was to dismiss. Read it once and you see a great king. Read it twice and you see a man being slowly hollowed out. I want to read it the second way. I want to take the linguistic care the editors took. I want to slow down where the text slows down and notice what it is asking us to notice. Because Solomon is not a cautionary tale told from the outside. Solomon is a mirror. The man wrote 3 biblical books. He spoke 3,000 proverbs. He named the trees and the beasts. He understood the structure of wisdom itself, and he could not save himself with any of it. If wisdom alone could keep a heart whole, Solomon would have died a saint. He did not. And the question that hangs over this entire story, the question the Hebrew word Lev Shalem keeps pressing into us, is the question of what actually keeps a heart whole when knowledge cannot. Chapter 2, a dream at Gibeon and what he did not ask, for before the temple, before the gold, before the wives, there is a dream at Gibeon. Solomon is young. The text in 1 Kings 3 does not give a number, but the parallel passage in 2 Chronicles, and Solomon's own self-description as a nar katon, a small boy, suggests he is somewhere in his late teens or early 20s when he becomes king. He has just consolidated power, executed Adonijah, exiled Abiathar, killed Joab at the altar, and dispatched Shimei. The opening of his reign is not gentle. The throne is secured in blood. Then he goes to Gibeon. The high place is still active. Jerusalem has the tent of David, but the great bronze altar of Moses is at Gibeon, and Solomon sacrifices 1,000 burnt offerings there. 1,000. The number is meant to register. This is a young king who knows that he stands at a threshold no one in Israel has stood at before. His father was a warrior. He will be the first king of Israel born to royalty, the first to inherit a kingdom rather than carve one. He does not know how to do this. That night God appears to him in a dream and asks the question every reader of Scripture remembers. Ask what I shall give you. The Hebrew is unusually open. There are no constraints, no conditions. The text is letting Solomon's heart speak in its purest form. before the years have layered it with everything they will layer. What he asks for has been called many things: wisdom, discernment, an understanding mind. The Hebrew is lev shomia, a listening heart, not a heart that knows, a heart that hears. There is a difference, and the difference will haunt the rest of his story. A heart that knows can become full of itself. A heart that hears must keep listening, or it stops hearing. He asks for a listening heart so that he can govern this great people, this people too numerous to be counted. He calls them God's people, not his own. He says he is small. He says he does not know how to go out or come in. The humility is not performed. It is the humility of a young man who has just inherited a country and has the honesty to admit he is not ready. God is pleased. The text says so directly. And then God gives him what he asked for, and gives him also what he did not ask for: wealth, honor, long life conditional on his obedience. The condition is buried in the gift, the way the warnings are buried in the praise. There is a sentence here that most readers move past. God says, "I have given you a wise and discerning heart, so that there has been no one like you before you, and no one like you shall arise after you." It is an extraordinary statement. It places Solomon at the center of human intellectual history, and it is a dangerous gift to give a young man who has just been told he is small, because here is what wisdom does. When it arrives early and arrives complete, it begins to feel like a possession, a property, something the wise man owns. The listening heart, if it stops listening, becomes a knowing heart. And a knowing heart, alone with itself, will eventually start trusting its own conclusions more than the voice that originally gave it the power to conclude. This is the seed, not idolatry, not the foreign wives. The seed is planted at Gibeon, in the moment when a young king is told he will be the wisest man who ever lives. From that moment on, every decision he makes is a decision made by a man who has been told he understands. And the slow work of the next 40 years is the slow work of forgetting that the gift was a hearing, not an owning. The chronicler, writing later, smooths out some of the rougher edges of the king's account. The chronicler loves Solomon. The chronicler builds him into a near-second David, the temple builder, the worshipper. But the king's narrator, more austere, more wary, does not let the dream pass without setting down a marker. The blessing comes with a condition. Walk in my ways, keep my statutes, and your days will be long. The if is there. It is always there. Solomon hears it. Whether he keeps hearing it is the rest of the story. He wakes from the dream and returns to Jerusalem. He stands before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. He offers burnt offerings and peace offerings and makes a feast for all his servants. The young king is at this moment the closest he will ever be to the heart his father had, the Lev Shalem, the whole heart. A few short verses later, 2 women will come before him with a baby, and he will pronounce the judgment that becomes the most famous courtroom story in the ancient world. And the kingdom will look upon him and tremble, because they will see that the wisdom of God is in him to do justice. It is the high point. It comes early. The Book of Kings does this on purpose. It puts the highest moment of Solomon's spiritual life in chapter 3. There are 8 more chapters before the warnings begin to surface in earnest, and another 2 before the full collapse. The reader is meant to feel the slow distance between the young king kneeling at Gibeon and the old king building shrines on the Mount of Olives. The same man, the same gift, a different heart. Chapter 3. The house on the mountain, the temple, was not Solomon's idea, it was David's. David wanted to build a house for the Lord, and the Lord through Nathan said no. The reason given is that David had been a man of war, with blood on his hands. The temple would be built by his son, a man whose very name, Shlomo, comes from shalom, peace. The house would be a house of peace, built by a king whose reign was, at least at the beginning, defined by the absence of war. The construction is described in 1 Kings 6 with a precision that has fascinated archaeologists and biblical scholars for centuries. 60 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, 30 cubits high, a vestibule of 20 cubits across the front. The Holy of Holies, a perfect cube of 20 cubits. The walls of cedar from Lebanon, carved with gourds and open flowers. The whole interior overlaid with pure gold, even the floor. 2 cherubim of olive wood, 10 cubits high, their wings outstretched until the wing of one touched the wall on one side, and the wing of the other touched the opposite wall, and their inner wings touched in the middle, above the ark. The image is staggering. The Ark of the Covenant, the chest, that had wandered with Israel through the wilderness, that had been captured by the Philistines and returned, that had sat in a tent through the reign of David, was finally placed beneath the wings of these enormous golden creatures, in a room no human eye could ordinarily see. The labor force is the part of the story that gets less attention. 30,000 men sent to Lebanon in shifts, 10,000 at a time, 70,000 burden bearers, 80,000 stonecutters in the hill country, 3,300 officers over the work. The numbers are immense, and they include, the text tells us in 1 Kings 5 and again more starkly in 1 Kings 9, men of the Canaanite peoples who remained in the land. Some translations soften this. The Hebrew does not. Solomon levied forced labor. Here is one of those buried details the editors place quietly. The temple is being built with a labor system that recalls, uncomfortably, the labor system Israel had been delivered from in Egypt. The kingdom that began in liberation from forced labor is now using forced labor to build the house of the God who liberated them. The text does not comment, it simply records. The reader is left to feel the weight. The chief craftsman is a man named Hiram, sometimes called Huram-Abi, sent from Tyre by King Hiram of Tyre. The text describes him as the son of a widow from the tribe of Naphtali, with a Tyrian father skilled in bronze. He casts the two great pillars at the temple entrance, Jachin and Boaz. He casts the molten sea, a vast bronze basin standing on 12 oxen, 3 facing each direction. He casts the 10 lavers, the lampstands, the basins. The temple is, in significant part, the work of a Phoenician artisan whose mother was Israelite and whose father was not. The house of the God of Israel is built by hands that come from beyond Israel. This is not a problem in the text, it is simply how the text describes things. The Phoenician craftsmanship, the Lebanese cedar, the Egyptian-style proportions, the broader Iron Age temple architecture, all of these have been studied by archaeologists who have pointed out that the Solomonic temple, in its dimensions and its furnishings, fits comfortably within the wider tradition of West Semitic temple building of the 10th century BC. It is distinctively Israelite in its theology, in its emptiness at the center where most ancient temples held a statue, but its form belongs to its world. 7 years to build. The number sits next to another number that the text places unmistakably beside it. Solomon's own palace took 13 years, almost twice as long. The house of the king was larger than the house of the Lord. The narrator does not editorialize. He sets the numbers next to each other and lets them speak. The dedication ceremony in 1 Kings 8 is one of the great prayers of the Hebrew Bible. Solomon stands before the altar, spreads out his hands toward heaven, and prays a prayer that anticipates almost every spiritual crisis the people of Israel will ever face. When they sin and the heavens are shut up, when they are defeated before an enemy, when famine comes, when pestilence comes, when the foreigner comes from a far country because of your name, when they are carried away captive to the land of the enemy. In each case, Solomon prays, "Hear from heaven your dwelling place and forgive." It is, read carefully, a prayer that already imagines exile. The young king, at the height of his glory, prays as if he can already see the smoke of Jerusalem rising in some future century. He prays for a future in which his people will pray toward this house from a land that is not their own. The prayer is more honest than most readers notice. Solomon, in his finest hour, knows what every wise man in the ancient world knew. Houses fall, empires end, even gold returns to the earth. The cloud fills the house when the priests come out. The glory of the Lord, the kavod, fills the temple so heavily that the priests cannot stand to minister. 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep are sacrificed. The numbers strain belief, and many scholars have argued they are stylized, the literary signature of a kingdom marking its highest moment with the largest possible offering. Whether the figures are precise or symbolic, the meaning is the same. Everything is being given, nothing is being withheld, the whole heart is offered, and then the ceremony ends. The people go home to their tents, joyful and glad of heart for all the goodness that the Lord had shown to David his servant and to Israel his people. It is the highest point. The temple stands. The cloud has filled it. The God of Israel has come, in the language of the text, to dwell. What follows in chapter 9 is short and easy to miss. The Lord appears to Solomon a second time, as he had at Gibeon. The second appearance is not a blank check. The second appearance is a warning. If you turn aside from following me, and serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land that I have given them, and the house that I have consecrated for my name I will cast out of my sight. Israel will become a proverb and a byword among all peoples. This house will become a heap of ruins. The same God who filled the temple with glory is the same God who tells the king, on the day after the dedication, that the temple itself can fall. The house is conditional. The covenant is conditional. The whole heart must remain whole. Chapter 4. 666 talents and the weight of gold, the number, in 1 Kings 10:14, is one of the strangest in Scripture. 666 talents of gold came to Solomon in 1 year. The number troubles every reader who knows the book of Revelation. The author of Kings was writing centuries before that later vision, and the number itself, in its original setting, is not a mark of the beast. It is a mark of weight. 666 talents, by most ancient calculations, is somewhere between 20 and 25 tons of gold, arriving annually, not counting trade and tribute, and the gifts of visiting monarchs. But the number is uncomfortable in another way. The book of Deuteronomy, in chapter 17, contains what scholars call the law of the king. It is a short, surprising passage. When Israel finally has a king, the king must not multiply horses for himself. He must not cause the people to return to Egypt to multiply horses. He must not multiply wives for himself, lest his heart turn away. And he must not greatly multiply for himself silver and gold. 3 prohibitions, 3 things the king must not do. And the narrator of Kings, with a quiet and devastating thoroughness, records that Solomon did all 3. The horses came from Egypt by the 1,000. The wives came from every surrounding nation by the 100. The silver and gold came in such quantities that the text says, silver was as common in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar as common as the sycamore of the Shephelah. This is not a coincidence of editing. This is the editor of Kings reading the law of Deuteronomy 17, and showing, item by item, that the king who built the temple was the king who broke the constitution of kingship that his own scripture contained. It is a kind of theological accounting. The narrator does not need to call Solomon disobedient. The narrator simply lists the prohibitions, and then lists Solomon's holdings, and lets the reader do the math. The Queen of Sheba comes during this period. The text in 1 Kings 10 describes her as the queen of a kingdom probably located in what is now Yemen, or the Horn of Africa, the great spice trading civilization of Saba. She comes to test Solomon with hard questions. She comes with camels bearing spices and very much gold and precious stones. She speaks with him of all that is on her mind, and the text says he answers all her questions. There was nothing hidden from the king that he could not explain to her. She praises him. She says half had not been told her. She says, "Blessed is the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and set you on the throne of Israel." The pagan queen recognizes the God of Israel through the wisdom of the Israelite king. This is, for one brief chapter, the great missionary moment of Solomon's reign. The wisdom flows outward. The nations come to hear. The promise to Abraham that in him all the families of the earth would be blessed briefly looks as if it is being fulfilled through the king on the throne in Jerusalem. And then she leaves, and the text returns to the gold, the throne of ivory overlaid with the finest gold, 6 steps to the throne, with 12 lions standing on the steps, 1 at each end of each step, 200 large shields of beaten gold, 300 smaller shields, drinking vessels all of gold. None were of silver, the text says, because silver was not considered as anything in the days of Solomon. There is a slow change in the texture of the narrative around this point. In the early chapters, the descriptions are about wisdom, about justice, about the temple. By chapter 10, the descriptions are almost entirely about wealth. The king's ships go to Tarshish. The king's ships come back with gold and silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. The king's stables fill. The king's storehouses fill. The king fills. A linguist working with the Hebrew of Kings has noticed something subtle. The verbs of receiving and gathering grow denser in chapters 9 and 10. The verbs of listening, of inquiring, of consulting grow rarer. The text is not announcing a change in Solomon's heart. The text is enacting it through the rhythm of its own vocabulary. The young king who once asked for a listening heart is, by this stage, mostly being described in terms of what he owns. This is one of the quiet places where you can see the editor's hand working. The Deuteronomist is not telling us that wealth is evil. The wealth is described as a gift from God, the same gift promised in the dream at Gibeon. The point is more delicate than that. The point is what wealth on this scale does to a man over time. It does not corrupt him in a single transaction. It teaches him slowly to expect. It teaches him to assume. It teaches him that every door opens, every problem solves, every desire arrives. And the heart that has been taught those things is no longer the same heart that knelt at Gibeon and asked for the ability to hear. The 666 talents, then, are not a curse. They are a description. They are the weight of a kind of life. A life in which the gold itself becomes a kind of slow gravity, pulling the soul toward the things gold can buy and away from the things it cannot. Solomon, somewhere in this period, stops being a man who weighs his decisions and becomes a man whose decisions are weighed by the scale of his own holdings. The Testament of Solomon, the much later pseudepigraphical text, written probably in the 1st to 3rd century after Christ, picks up the legend of Solomon's wealth and turns it into something occult. In that text, Solomon possesses a magical ring given by the archangel Michael, by which he commands demons to build the temple and reveal their names. The Testament is not scripture. It is a Greek language, Christian-influenced legend that draws on older Jewish folklore. But it is interesting for what it tells us about how later readers remembered Solomon. They remembered a man whose wisdom had drifted towards something other than wisdom. A man whose knowledge had begun, in the cultural imagination, to overlap with the kinds of knowledge wisdom literature itself had always warned against. The biblical Solomon does not have a demon-binding ring. The biblical Solomon has something both less dramatic and more disturbing. He has a heart that is slowly forgetting how to listen, and a treasury that is slowly teaching him to think of himself in the third person, as the king who has, the king who possesses, the king who is. Chapter 5. The daughters of foreign kings, 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. The number is the number that everyone remembers about Solomon, and almost no one stops to consider what it actually meant in the diplomatic world of the 10th century BC. In the ancient Near East, royal marriage was foreign policy. A king did not in general marry for love. A king married to seal a treaty. The daughter of a foreign king lived in the receiving king's palace as a living guarantee of the peace between two thrones. If the foreign king broke faith, his daughter would suffer. If he kept faith, she would flourish. She was, in a literal sense, the embodied form of the alliance. When 1 Kings 11 says Solomon loved many foreign women, the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites, the list is a map of the ancient Near East. Egypt to the southwest, Moab and Ammon across the Jordan to the east, Edom to the south, Sidon, the great Phoenician city, to the north. The Hittites, in this period probably referring to the Neo-Hittite states of northern Syria. Solomon's marriages cover every direction of the compass. The kingdom of Israel, under Solomon, has bound itself to every neighboring power through the bodies of their princesses. This is brilliant policy. It is also, the narrator of Kings is at pains to show, a direct violation of the explicit command in Deuteronomy 7. You shall not intermarry with them, giving your daughters to their sons, or taking their daughters for your sons, for they would turn away your sons from following me, to serve other gods. The command is given with a reason. The reason is not racial. The reason is theological. The foreign wives bring foreign gods, and the king who marries them must, sooner or later, build them places to worship. This is exactly what happens. The text in 1 Kings 11 is unusually direct. Solomon's wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not whole, Lev Shalem, with the Lord his God, as the heart of David,